Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our beautiful, wonderful, exciting podcast, Two Peas in the Podcast, episode 8. My goodness. We are your beautiful hosts as ever. I am Katie Oman. Hi, how you doing?
Hi, and I am Jessica.
And we are here with another fabulous episode as per. And we know that we kind of teased a little bit last week. We weren't sure, if being honest, what we we're going to talk about, but we had a good chat over the week. And we've decided, drumroll,
We are going to talk about mothers.
Bum, bum, bum. Yes, we're going into motherhood because both of us are mothers. So we're going to talk about our experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and and we're going to talk about the realities of it. So hopefully you'll find this funny. Hopefully you'll find it interesting. As ever, share your experiences and your thoughts in the comments. But we're going to dive into this and get the meat on the potatoes, right?
The meat on the potatoes. I think that's going to be good. Sure. I think. Sorry, we're both talking over each other today for some reason. We're not coordinated. No, I think it's going to be good, especially since we just had Mother's Day. It's like it's time to celebrate mothers. So let's go ahead and get into this. I guess the first thing we should talk about is our experiences of becoming mothers. Yeah, it was a lot. And I have 2 children. Katie has 3 children with 2 pregnancies. Bum, 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 right?
Spoilers.
So obviously she has twins, right? But yeah, I will we'll go back and forth because we have a couple kids to go over here. So I'll start with Bella. First of all, I want to say that I was never the type that really thought I would be a mom. Like when I was younger growing up, like I wanted to join the Peace Corps and I wanted to go overseas and like save people and build like water irrigation systems for like, struggling villages or whatever. Like that was my whole like thing that I swore I was going to do, but life had a way of happening. And I met this guy that he, everybody knows what happens next. Okay. And it was kind of unexpected, but also not really, because with Bella, her dad, he wanted to have kids, even though, to be honest, I didn't really think that I was necessarily ready for that. But I was a big people pleaser back in the day, like to the point of, not like getting pregnant on purpose, but almost like, well, if it happens, it happens, and he's happy and he wants a kid. So if it happens, it happens, and not really stopping to think, well, do you really want a child right now? Are you able to take care of a child? Is this the right time for a child? Because when I had Bella, I was 21, but I got pregnant when I was 20. So I was really just starting out in life, But again, life happened and I had her. Her pregnancy was really easy for me, honestly. That was the easy one. I did go into labor with her early, which was pretty much the only complication. She was born about 4 or 5 weeks early, but she was okay though when she was born. Like she didn't have any issues or problems. She was only 5 pounds, 5 ounces. She was a tiny little baby. My mom, I remember, took pictures of her next to a dollar bill, and she was just slightly longer than the dollar bill, y'all. I'm so serious. It's a crazy, I don't know, it was a crazy experience. She looked like a little doll. I remember when my dad first saw her, I remember he looked to my mom. It's something I'll never forget, because I'm sitting there in the hospital bed, just like, and I remember my dad looked to my mom as almost a reassurance from her, like the baby's okay, right? Because she was so small. And my mom was like, she's fine here, and gave him to her to hold and everything. But it was when I say smooth pregnancy, guys, I say as smooth as a pregnancy can be. And also a labor and delivery. I mean, like as smooth as one can be. Okay. Sure. I was in labor with her for 19 hours. So it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, that's smooth, I guess. And I was trying to do it without an epidural, but at the last minute, I was like, okay, I need something. Like I'm wearing a time machine to go back and change my choices. Like, do you have that? Forget the epidural. I need a time machine. I want to go back, okay? Because I just had never felt that much pain in my life, And when you're having contractions, it comes in waves.
Yes.
So you're fine for a second. You're like, okay, this isn't so bad. I got this.
And then you're like,
the thing I was telling myself was like, my ancestors and everybody's ancestors have been doing this for millennia. I need to just grow up, get with it. It can't be that bad. But it is actually very painful. And the contractions feel like your whole stomach is getting like clenched in.
Yeah.
It's absolutely horrible. Anyways, finally had an epidural. Not a pleasant feeling to have a needle like this long go into your spine. Okay. Yeah. And then also at the same time, the dude who was giving me the epidural wanted to give me sass, which I really didn't appreciate. Cause you know how I am anyways. I'm like, this is not the time. He was basically like, oh, it's not smart to move when you got a needle in your back. I can't really help that. You know, like it's uncomfortable. It feels like a pressure almost on your spine. Yeah. But anyways, after that, it's a blur. The drugs kicked in. Life was amazing again. I was back to feeling very confident about this and that I had this. And yeah, you know, then we ended up having to go C-section because all my pushing, it just would not happen. And finally, when we had the C-section and the doctor saw the baby, she's like, or he, excuse me, was like, all that trouble for this little tiny baby, like, you know, but she was such a beautiful baby and so pleasant and just not really a crier. I was really lucky with that, but I know you have some stories.
Oh, I have a story for days.
But yeah,
I will preface this and say, if you are wanting to get pregnant or you are pregnant, you may want to just skip this video because my birth stories, I don't tend to tell women until after they've had children because they're not fun, my birth stories. I'm quite surprised that I did it twice. Let's put it that way. Let's start with my eldest. So like you, Jess, I was 20 when I got pregnant. And it was not planned. I was actually on birth control. I was on the pill. And I found out afterwards they wish to put a bigger warning label on the box. It's only 98% effective. So yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, to say the very least, when I found out I was pregnant. But it was never a thought in my brain to do anything other than keep him. My partner at the time was quite adamant that he didn't want to know the sex of the baby. So, and being a huge people pleaser too, I was like, fine, even though I was desperate to know what I was having. But everyone was telling me that I was having a girl because of the way I was carrying. So, which is a bit of an old wives' tale, I think, in hindsight. But, you know, people say these things. Anyway, so the pregnancy itself, I mean, morning sickness, ha 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 ha. That term is hilarious because morning sickness, my ass. I both times, which I'll get into the second one in a bit, but both times I've had morning sickness all day for like a month, 2 months. So yeah, not fun. But aside from that, it was pretty straightforward as a pregnancy until I got to around 32 weeks. Now, if you've watched the Spiritual Awakening episode of this podcast, you'll know the story. But just to reiterate for those that have missed it, and if you haven't watched this episode, go back and watch it. But my granddad was in hospital. He had stomach cancer, and I went to see him. And my nan and her sister were in, obviously visiting. And my nan said to me, "Are you feeling all right, Kate? Your feet are awfully big." And I put it down to water retention. So I just went, yeah, I'm fine, because I felt fine, right? I felt, apart from being pregnant, I felt fine within myself. And she was like, well, you know, they're all a little big. I would go and get that checked out if I were you. So I rang my my midwife, my health visitor, and she said, I'll come and see you on the Monday. So anyway, the week continued. She didn't come. And by the Friday, I'm sitting at home on my own watching. Oh, no, I was reading, and it was dead quiet in the house. Even the dog was asleep. And suddenly in my ear, I heard, "Get to the doctor now." I was like, like I said to you last time, my first thought was like somebody had broken into the house. Which makes me laugh. Why that was my first thought, I don't know. But there you go. So I'm now like, you know, freaking out. My brain. But yeah, I very cautiously with the dog, looked around the house, there's nobody there. There was no TV on, no radio on. The neighbors were all out. I was like, that was weird. And I was not spiritually awakened at all when I was 20. But when I opened the front door, there was a big white feather on the step, just sitting there. And there was something in me, thank God, that went, I probably should go and get this looked at. So I got the bus into the town and I went to the doctor, and the doctor took one look at me and said, go to the hospital now. And I went, oh yeah, well, I'll wait for my boyfriend to come home. And she went, no, now. And I was like, okay. So luckily my friend's mum, she took me, and turns out that I had preeclampsia, which is where your blood pressure goes off the chart. It is sky high. And the only way to alleviate it is to give birth. And it's very dangerous. If the baby isn't born, both mother and baby, there's a huge risk they won't make it. So at 33 weeks, just before my 21st birthday, I gave birth. He was 7 weeks prem. He was £3.12 when he came out. I remember the C-section. It was because I was awake, obviously. I mean, I was numb from the neck down, but I was awake. And I am very squeamish as a person. I don't like anything to do with blood, guts. I'm very squeamish. And so I had screen, I was lying down, obviously, but I had screen here, so I couldn't see. The baby's father was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Just either watch the whole thing. I think it's gross, but whatever. But I looked up, and there was a massive reflective light above my head. So I saw, as I looked up, I saw a whole of my inside of my own body, and I went, ah! But of course, being so little, they took him out and then cleaned him up and took him immediately down to special care baby unit. So I didn't get to hold him, which, is one of those things. But they cleaned me up and sewed me up and put me back on the ward. And even then, my blood pressure wouldn't come down. So they were trying to give me drugs to monitor it. And I ended up having the only migraine I've ever had in my life because they gave me too much and I was really sick. But eventually they managed to stabilize it. And got to go home. Once I was, you have to have a bath and you have to go to the toilet. TMI, but it's true. But they eventually let me go home. And I had to stay with my boyfriend's parents because for the 4 weeks while Jack was in hospital, because it was closer to the hospital, be backwards and forwards. I was trying to breastfeed, but he was so small and we were both getting stressed. He just couldn't get a latch on. So the poor midwife came in and I was crying and Jack was crying and she went, I'll get you a bowl, because it just wasn't happening. But yeah, he came home after 4 weeks, and I mean, now he's 22 and he's 6 foot tall. So he definitely made up for the slow start, shall we say. So
yeah, it's really interesting too, like how he was so tiny and now he's just like larger than life. Yep. I can't imagine a world without Jack, though. Jackie boy, no. He's such an angel, like an earth angel, honestly. He's a really good kid. That story is right. I would be so scared. Oh my gosh. It's funny because my mom she's never been squeamish. So she actually took pictures of my C-section. Yes, there's photographic evidence out there somewhere. I'm pretty sure it's in photo albums that my dad has somewhere, But I saw
this is Jess when she was a baby. This is Jess when she was 5. This is Jess's uterus from the inside.
Like splayed open like an open book, just like, you know what I mean? It's just, yeah. But anyways, yes. Well, I don't know. The C-section, because I had one C-section, I really wanted with my second child to try to do things natural. So we'll move on to Milo, because Bella, by the way, she's 18 now. Can't believe that was 18 years ago. Time flies when you're having fun, man. I'll tell you what. Katie, I don't know if you guys saw, but Katie went. But anyways, okay, so second pregnancy, Milo. This point, I was 31 years old, and I was for sure that I was not going to have any more kids. I know I said that already. I just did not want any more children. You know, I just really didn't. I wanted to focus on my career, I wanted to focus on myself. But I met this guy at my work and we hit it off, and it was very passionate. And I mean, it was passionate. Okay. I was pregnant within a month and a half, 2 months of knowing him, which shows you guys how fast I was. I'm just being transparent and honest. It was very quickly that we got pregnant. And of course, he did not want any more kids. And I really didn't want any more kids either. So just full transparency, I did consider like getting it taken care of. But I don't know, there was something inside of me that was like, you know, this is a part of you, or I don't know. I just felt like this weird connection already to the baby, you know? Um, and I told him I was going to decide I was going to have the baby. And if he didn't want to be a part of the baby's life, well, then that was going to be on him and it was going to be what it was going to be. But I was going to have the baby. And him being a semi decent guy, he was like, no, I'm going to be a part of my kid's life, you know, all that stuff. So we decided to make this whole relationship thing work and go ahead and have a baby. Granted, guys, at this time, we didn't really even know each other. I mean, you know, honestly, when you meet somebody and you get pregnant a couple months after, we had worked together for a while before
Yeah.
we actually got together. So we had some kind of knowledge of each other and stuff like that. But we didn't really know what it was going to be like to be in a relationship with each other because it was just kind of a fling. We were just having fun. It really wasn't that deep. But it got deep really quickly. And we started moving in together and just doing the whole thing. Now, Milo's pregnancy was a lot different than Bella's pregnancy. It was harder. I had morning sickness, and I had mornings, and it is a joke. It's not morning sickness. It's every single moment of your life sickness. It's you smell a weird smell and you're sick. You see something you don't want to see and you're sick. I remember because both me and Milo's dad, we worked in kitchens at that point. And so I remember when he would come home from school, I would literally, I want to say poor guy, but he's all right, guys. Trust me. I made him strip down to the skivvies out at the front door. He had to take his shoes off. He had to take his pants off. He had to take his chef coat off, his hat off. He had to take everything off. He had to run through the house, jump into, I mean, literally run, okay, on the way, okay, to the shower. And he had to scrub everything and really like, he had to really scrub himself because the smell of like the food and him cooking all day, it was just too much for me. So it was a lot. And then once I was able to actually start eating, like I started eating like a lot. I gained so weird. I'm just being like so honest. Like I made up for lost time. I gained so much weight with Milo. Like it was.
Did you have any pregnancy cravings? Sorry to interrupt. Did you have any?
No. Yeah, I had Honey Crisp apples.
Okay, that's weird because with the twins, I had a thing about apples as well.
It's funny, and you know, and I was told by my doctor that the cravings that you have is like maybe sometimes what vitamins you need supplemented or whatever. But Milo actually to this day really likes Honey Crisp apples in particular. Like that is something that he likes. I mean, he likes apple juice, and so you know, it's one of those things. But my pregnancy was not great emotionally either, and not to call out his dad because looking back in hindsight, I can see how we were different people. We were on different paths and we kind of got thrown together into this. And so it wasn't easy. But I was not very much emotionally supported during that pregnancy. I was kind of ignored, left to my own devices. He was clearly very unhappy about having a baby, didn't want to have a baby. So there was a lot of resentment. There was a lot of just being emotionally distant. And other things like texting his coworkers and things that were just causing a lot of issues. And so I spent a lot of that pregnancy sad and crying.
Yeah.
And Katie knows, yes, Katie was a part of the journey. And so I don't know, I just didn't enjoy it. It wasn't like my first pregnancy. My first pregnancy, me and the dad were on the same page and everything was good and okay. And we're not here to talk about the breakups and things like that, so I won't get into the details. I'll just say that yes, during my second pregnancy, I felt very alone. When it was time, it was time. Milo was full term. He was, I think, 7 pounds, like 12 ounces or something like that. He was like an average sized baby. And I was told because of my first pregnancy, we found out that my cervix is extremely small. And so I, even being fully dilated, wasn't really considered fully dilated. And so that's why she wasn't able to come out, even being a tiny baby. And so I was going to have a C-section. Any babies that I had in the future, they were going to have to be C-section. So I figured, okay, well, I've been through this, so it's not going to be a big deal. Famous last words. So we go to the hospital and everything's fine. And my mom, and they only let one person in at a time with you during the C-section. And usually, it's the baby's daddy, father, whatever. And my mom, she felt some type of way about that because she felt like she could be more help than Ish in the waiting room, which I kind of agree. To be honest, I feel like Ish would agree too that he wasn't very helpful. But she was right out there, and the doctor kind of let her sit there at the window and kind of watch and everything. Well, so everything's going as normal. I get the epidural, everything's fine. I'm laid down, I'm, doing this. And then all of a sudden, it's starting to feel like I can't breathe. And I remember I instantly started panicking because, that's one of my things is not being able to breathe and suffocating. Excuse me. And so I'm sitting there trying to get the epidural guy, anesthesiologist, whatever his title is. He's sitting above me. I'm laying down and he's sitting right here by my head. And I'm looking up at him and he's like, is everything okay? And I was like, I can't breathe, right? Because I couldn't breathe. I couldn't expand my diaphragm to take a full breath. Okay. And so I was really freaking out. And I don't know what it is with healthcare professionals and SAS, but it's this not the proper time, but he was basically like, well, your oxygen says that it's 80%. I'm like, well, I can't breathe, motherfucker, right? Is what I would have told him if I was able to, but I couldn't argue with him because I was conserving my energy to try to breathe. So it's we'll have this conversation later, which we never got to because I never saw him again. But I'm just I can't breathe, and that's when he had discovered, because the doctor that was doing the C-section, he was like, everything okay over there, and obviously they were monitoring my vitals and my heart was starting to increase and I was getting I was panicking basically. And basically he was very open and upfront with what happened. He had accidentally put my diaphragm to sleep. Okay. I didn't know that was a thing that could happen. I didn't know. Okay. So yes, I was not able to expand to take a breath. So he's like, so what I need you to do is not panic. Tell yourself over and over again, I can breathe, and take small breaths. Cause I had to basically like that to try to breathe. He's like, this should wear off within 10 minutes. 10 minutes hearing that felt like that was going to be a lifetime. Like I was going to be gone. Right. And so I looked over at Milo's dad, and Milo's dad was panicked. His eyes were all wide. He didn't know what to do. Like I said, he was useless in that situation, which again, anybody would be, I think. So I just kind of just focused on breathing, and I just kind of zoned out and just focused on, trying to catch my breath. And finally I started to feel more and more like I could expand my chest, and, we were okay. And the doctor kind of had stopped the C-section part of this to kind of focus on me to make sure that I was okay. And everybody was kind of focused on me, and he wasn't really pulling the baby out anymore or doing any of that. It was more, everybody was focused on me at that point. So he kind of went back. Honestly, everything's kind of a blur, so I don't really know, but I know that he went back, and it was after I could start breathing again that he finally took Milo out of me. And that's when I heard the cry. And the first thing out of Ish's mouth was, oh my God, Jessica, he looks just like you. And I was like, yay, right? Which, to be fair, both of my kids, I said most of my kids, both of my kids do look just like me. They're literally spitting images of me. And he was the most beautiful thing that I ever seen, just like Bella. It was the same kind of feeling, just instantly in love with him. And it was different with him than with Bella. I will admit that. And I think that that's something that should be normalized and talked about, is you are going to feel different with each kid,
Yeah.
And you do connect differently with your children. With Milo, I was in this whole baby moon energy. I was just so in love with this baby. Like after he was born, just constantly coddling him and taking pictures of him and holding him. And I was just so in love with him. Not that I wasn't in love with Bella, but it was just a different feeling. But yeah, my second pregnancy was definitely worse. Maybe that's a trend.
Maybe that must have been so scary. I can't even imagine. Like, I know what your phobia is, but even like without that, even thinking about myself, I would have been terrified. You know, you're already out of control. You're
Yeah.
an epidural. You're lying on a table, essentially being cut open, and now you can't breathe as well. God, that
Yeah.
must be so frightening.
It was very frightening. And it was kind of like, I don't know if that counts as one of my near death experiences because I had another one where we got into a wreck out of nowhere and we were going like full speed into a tree. It
Yeah,
was me and the guy that I was with before, Milo's dad. Um and as I saw that tree coming at me, it was more like your whole life flashes before your eyes.
yeah,
So just like when that situation with the tree happened, I made peace instantly.
yeah,
Like, if this is how I'm going, then this is how I'm going. And there's nothing I can really do about this. So I'm just going to
yeah.
accept it. But yeah, it was extremely terrifying. And one reason why I could possibly have another kid again, the doctors have advised that I don't have any more
Yeah.
children. But I wouldn't really want to because of that. It was just so scary. I don't want to, you know?
I feel you on that, kid. Honestly, like I've told this by a doctor, I'm very fertile. Like I can get pregnant quite easily. My thing is my body doesn't like being pregnant. That's
Mm-hmm.
the thing. So I feel you on that. And hence when we come to my second birthday, which Jess knows, but to the watchers of this, strap yourselves in because this is a story. Right. So I guess to stretch before I tell. So I got married on my 30th birthday in 2011. I got married. Classical well, I was 30, but yeah, 2011. And my then became my husband, obviously. He didn't have any children. I obviously had Jack, but he didn't, and he was really desperate to be a dad. He like something that he'd always wanted, and he kept asking me and asking me. And my thing was, well, I have Jack, so it took a while for me to kind of be like, and in the end, again, people pleaser, I went, okay, I'll have one more. Ha and so I came off my birth control, and I was pregnant. So we got married in the October. I was pregnant by the December. It was really quick, and so 12-week scan, and I'm lying on the bed. And of course, you've got the sonographer, I think that's the word. You got the gel on your tummy, and she's doing the thing, looking for them. And she went, so there's the 2 heartbeats. Excuse me? She went, didn't you know you were having twins? And I went, well, this is the face of someone who knows they're having twins. So I was like, right. So came out of the hospital and we're both in shock because that wasn't on the plan at all, right? So I ring my mum, because obviously, and she said, you're joking. You're joking. You're joking. And I was like, no, I'm not joking, mum. And she was like, oh, so it was just like, again, shock. But when I ring my mother-in-law, she was so blasé. She was like, oh, yeah, there's twins in the family, but really far back. I was like, oh, thanks for telling us. Right. But when I say that pregnancy, again, this is where Jess and I do have a lot of similarities, was a lot different from the first. Obviously, having had preeclampsia and a C-section, they were monitoring me a lot, especially when they realized I was having twins. I had a lot of scans and appointments and tests. Like, they were really watching me to make sure that I was okay. And I had the most awful, again, morning sickness. And then I was huge. When I say I didn't think, you know that your skin can stretch. Jesus, I looked massive. My stomach was just like, it was huge. Belly button popped right out, the whole thing. I was massive. And of course, then my lower back was really sore with all that weight at the front. So it was constant pain. But at 28 weeks, I started feeling really ill. And I I'll try and keep this so it's not too, because again, we've established that I'm squeamish, but I'll try to keep it to, I won't go into too much detail, but essentially I couldn't keep anything in my body. So I was either being sick or it was coming out the other way, for want of a better kind of term. And it was bad. And everything was just passing right through me, and I was exhausted because that's tiring being like that. And of course they're checking on me and testing me, but they don't really know what's going on. They're just thinking, oh, maybe it's like a stomach virus, or they didn't know. That's the thing. And I'm like, I kind of was awful. At 32, I had suffered with this for nearly 4 weeks with not really an awful lot of break. So I was like, and of course I'm carrying these two babies. I was so tired. At 33 weeks, I realized that, so I knew where my babies were sitting. So my daughter was sitting lengthways, horizontally across near my belly button, and my son was sitting vertically down the right-hand side. And I realized that for about 2 days, I hadn't felt him move. And of course, I now start panicking, thinking, oh my God, what if whatever I've got is now affecting the children? And so I'm panicking. So I rang the midwife, the health visitor, and two of them came to see me. And I'm trying not to panic, but I am panicking. And they were like, they had me on the sofa, and I'm also crying because I'm also exhausted at this point. And so they're kind of they're feeling into my tummy and whatnot and checking my blood pressure and all that. And she said, I'm going to ring an ambulance just in case. Just in case anything happens, we're just going to ring an ambulance, really blunt. And I was like, okay. So the ambulance came to the house and they got me in the back, and they've got the sirens going, the lights are going, we're flying down the road. I felt like I was in some kind of movie, and the doors were going to fling open, I'd be down the road, on the bridge trolley. And so they took me, that's my brain, they took me to the hospital. And again, they wind me up. They got the heart rates on, and obviously on my stomach, and they're trying to understand what's going on. So they put me in an MRI machine, and I am crying because I am in so much pain, and I'm scared. And they say, "Lie still, Kate. Lie still." And I'm like, "I'm trying," but I was in a lot of pain. Anyway, they saw what was going on with me. Which, when I tell you what happened, is mad, because what they didn't do one thing, but I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, they come to me and they said, there's an influenza outbreak in the special care baby unit. So we're worried that you'll go into labour. So what we're going to do is we're ringing round all the hospitals to try and find you a bed. And we're ringing everywhere. Now, bear in mind, I at the time was in the Midlands, which is in the middle of England, obviously. They said, we're ringing everywhere from Scotland to London to try and find you a bed. I'm like, okay. I'm thinking, whatever. I'm not in control of this anymore. Okay, fine. Luckily, thankfully, after about a couple of hours, a bed came free an hour away. So at 2:00 in the morning on the 15th of June, I was taken in another ambulance, again with the sirens going, with the lights going, and they drove me from one hospital to another hospital. And then when I got there, I am exhausted at this point, but again, they had to do all my vitals and do all my checks, and I eventually managed to get a little bit of sleep. I wake up, whatever time it was, can't remember, and I am in pain. I am in so much pain. And to the point that I can't sit down, I can't lie down, I can't really walk. I'm just literally holding on to the cabinet on by the bed, and I'm just like, oh, this hurts. One of the nurses walks past the room, and I said, "Sure, you're all right." And I went, if I didn't know any better, I swear I was in labour. Because bear in mind, I'd not been in labour with Jack because I'd had my C-section, right? I didn't know what labour felt like. So I said, I swear I'm in labour. And she went, "Oh, you'll be all right. I'll get you some paracetamol, painkillers in a minute." As she walked down the corridor, my waters went, and I smacked the emergency button, and they all came running, right? And it was only then, after all of that, that they did an internal check, because it turns out that the whole day before, I'd been in labour and nobody had checked me internally. So I'd done all that thing in the MRI machine, in the ambulances, in labour, with no help and no support and no pain relief. It's insane. But like Jess, I also decided I was going to try and do it naturally. In hindsight, I'm a bloody idiot. Why did I do that? Like it's some badge of honor. Trust me, women out there, if you're watching this and push you having a natural birth is no badge of honor. Honest to God, it is. It hurts to say the very least. Whatever pain you've been in before, triple it, quadruple it. It's bad. But obviously, like I had an epidural, not necessarily just for the labor. And again, this is TMI, and I'm sorry, but because I've had toilet trouble for a month nearly, my bottom was not in a good place. My bottom was not pretty at that point, and they were worried that with the labor I was going to really hurt myself. So they gave me an epidural. They gave me all the drugs. I am as high as a kite, and I am trying to push. And my daughter came out first, but she took a long time to come out, to the point that in the end they had to force her out of me, and she didn't cry when she came out because the cord was wrapped around her neck, and for 10 seconds she made not one sound, and it was the longest 10 seconds of my life. So frightened that she was dead. And when she cried, I was just like, thank you so much. And then because I'm exhausted and because I'm on like 1,000 drugs and because I don't really know what day it is anymore, I think in that moment that it's going to be exactly the same for my son. So I'm going, just cut me open, just cut me open. And they went, Katie, just push. And I'm like, I can't. And they went, Katie, breathe, push. 8 minutes later, my son shot out like a fucking water slide. Like it's the easiest thing ever. Because of course I'm all open at that point. Not that wise, that would be weird. And he, sorry, sorry. And yeah, he was screaming his head off. He did not. Obviously, you could tell my daughter was like, oh, she was coming out because my son was all bunched up like he'd been asleep and his little grumpy face. They were 3.5 pounds each. They were from here to here. They were tiny. And again, taking special care baby unit immediately because they were so small. And they had to have help breathing and all that sort of stuff. Me, I'm taken off to the ward on my own. They put me in isolation because they still don't know what's wrong with me and they worry that I'm contagious. So they put me in isolation. So I've just given birth and I'm not allowed to see my babies for 2 days. And I've got hormones and milk, and like I am they keep showing me pictures of them on the phone, and I'm trying to express milk, crying while I'm doing it because I'm like can't see, like standing at the window like some movie character, like oh my babies. Eventually, they come to me and go, "You had gastroenteritis. You've not been contagious for 2 weeks. You can go and see them." In hindsight, I wish I'd sue their ass off, but that's another story. But yeah, again, the twins were in for 4 weeks before they came home. So yeah, birth and me, not friends. And never again. Well, I can't anymore because I had a hysterectomy last year, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, no more children. I've done my bit for humanity. 3 kids is more than enough.
And that, folks, is the beauty of motherhood.
I'm getting a lot of applause for that story because that's the story, right?
No, honestly, because I was just sitting here the whole time, like if I was a brand new mother, like somebody who hadn't given birth yet but was pregnant, I would be horrified. I would be absolutely horrified listening to that story. I'm really hoping that there is nobody that's pregnant because there's not much you can do about it now, you know?
I know. I am sorry. Like, if I frightened you, I am sorry. But this is the reality of what birth is. Do you know what the funniest thing in the world is to me? When they say to you, have you made your birth plan? I just laugh because I'm like, the baby don't know no birth plan. What about?
Yeah. And there are, you know, let's just be fair here. There are definitely mothers that have a pristine, ideal birth. They push 2 times, they get their brow blotted with with a clean cloth, and then the baby just out looking like just beautiful, you know, 8 pounds, chubby cheeks, just beautiful baby. It does happen. You know, body instantly snatched back to normal. It does happen, but I think that we are probably more realistic stories of pregnancies and what can happen and what can go wrong.
Yes.
So yeah, that is just a gruesome story. And I think that the part too about where you weren't able to see your baby after you had your baby, that's just horrible. Because I remember
Oh, it was
like that
horrendous.
makes it worth it. When you have the baby in your hand and you feel that love and that connection, actually that's where that pregnancy amnesia thing that people talk about, that's where that comes from. Because then
Yeah.
you're like, oh, this wasn't so bad. And you just like, you love your baby and it's whatever. But to kind of be locked in a room.
I mean, I ended up with, not straight after, but I ended up with what's now called postpartum depression. Not a
Yeah.
surprise, right? Because let's talk about trauma.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I kind of thought that with my son that I would have postpartum depression because of how horrible the pregnancy was emotionally for me.
Yeah.
But the weirdest kind of thing happened with his dad after I had the baby. Like there was a switch or something that flipped, and he was like a completely different person. Like
Mm.
for like the first year or so, like after that, like he was like the most doting, open, available, vulnerable, like, what do you need? Do you need anything? And, you know, suddenly sending me text messages throughout the day. I love you. I love my baby. I was just like, okay, well, this is all we needed to do to get you on board is to have a baby. So it kind of, that really actually helped with the postpartum depression. It made me like, after I had the baby, I felt like what I wished I would have felt during my pregnancy, which was
Yeah.
wanted, appreciated, loved, you know,
Yeah.
cared for. He just really stepped up after that. So I don't know. It was an odd situation, but you know, it's that we need a
Right.
breather after that. Like honestly, after those stories, like we need a breather, guys. Holy moly! So if you're still here,
If you're still here, we love you. Well done. I feel like give it her breath because that was a lot. We know, but we wanted to be honest, and it's very easy for us just to talk about spiritual matters because obviously we're both very spiritual. We're both psychic. We both have lots of experience, but we want this to be more than just the spiritual channel. And we're both, as both moms, we have that in common. And it's a very shared reality, so it's kind of natural for us to talk about it. But we appreciate it was a lot to hear. So well done on you if you're still here.
yes. So I guess next, what we need to talk about now that we've had the babies and we've horrified our audience, we need we need to talk about how I don't know the struggles, the ups, the downs of motherhood. I don't think that we can necessarily just go like, okay, well, this is this and this is this. It's motherhood, parenthood in general is so complex and it's different for everybody. It's tiring,
Certainly.
it's exhausting. It teaches you things about yourself. And then more so, I think when you're single parents, because both of you and I ended up being single parents.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stigma around that. So I don't know if you want to talk about anything that you faced with that or how you felt.
I mean, in terms of societal stigma, if you like, I do remember there have been times when I've been dealing with in stores, when you go in to buy stuff, or you have like the opticians was another one. And when you kind of, because at that point I was mostly on government assistance. My business wasn't it was still in its infancy, so I was getting a lot of financial support as a single parent. And when I would say to certain, again, not everybody, but there were certain stores and certain opticians where I kind of said, "Oh, I'm a single parent," and I felt like the comments and the energy and the expressions that were given to me, and there was like I was, if I'd been started out, their opinion of me was here, it went to here, and I know people will go, oh well, that's how you felt about yourself, but it really wasn't. That was the thing. It was, I really noticed a shift in them when, because they were judging me. And so, like, a very classic example, I went to the opticians, as we're talking about it, and I had to have some glasses because I don't wear glasses all the time, but I do wear them for computer work because I have astigmatism in my eye. It's the whole thing. And when she said, "Oh, we have these frames," and I said, "Oh, I'm a single parent," so, and she went, "Oh, if you can't afford to be in here, then you should go somewhere else." I was shocked, and in hindsight, I wish that I'd bitten back, but I was just like, "Let's get out of it." Went outside the shop, went around the corner, and burst into tears. And then, being the Libra that I am, I went home, processed, wrote a very strongly worded email, and got a voucher, which I've never come up getting back in that store. But it's like people's judgment it's remarkable sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that people are very critical and black and white in their thinking when it comes to all kinds of things in life, not just with being a single parent. I mean, I think that people forget that life happens, that things don't go according to plan. I don't think that anybody who's a single parent, whether you're a woman or a man, because I've known quite a few single fathers that have their kids, I don't think that anybody plans to start out as a single parent. I mean,
No.
obviously, I can't speak for the whole human race, but I think the majority of us, we want to have a loving family. We want to have that family dynamic. It's just that sometimes you are better off apart. That was the situation. Now, with my daughter's father, in which, there's no love loss here with me and him. I don't have anything really, and I don't have anything negative to say about him. I don't have anything good to say about him either. He was somebody who, I don't want to say pushed me in to have a baby, because as I explained earlier in this episode, I was in that energy of, I just wasn't standing up for myself and saying, I don't think this is the right time for me. Right. But 8 months after Bella was born, he disappeared. He was gone. Okay. And he was the one that really was like adamant about it was time for him to become a father and he's been gone ever since. He doesn't even pay child support. Okay. I don't get absolutely any assistance or help from him. He every sporadically once in a while has shown up and kind of threw his weight around, and it fell flat because, and yeah, I mean, that was that situation. With, as I explained, with me and Milo's dad, we very admittedly, if he was sitting here right next to me, would be just as open with you guys that me and Jess just really weren't compatible. We really didn't know each other that well, and so when the relationship kind of fell apart, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but there were certain things that were happening that I did not want my son or my daughter to grow up around. We'll just leave it at that. Okay. Yeah. There were certain things that were happening where I was just like, I think I could do better on my own.
Yeah.
I think I could create a healthier environment for my children on my own. And and that was right around the time where I was going through my spiritual awakening and everything. And I just took the leap and left. I saw that this guy was not going to change. We were not on the same path. We weren't even in the same books. We were just not, let alone the same page, and I actually have not regretted that decision. I'm one of those people who, like, did I start out wanting to be a single mom? No. But am I happy as a single mom? Absolutely. I am happy as a single mom. I think I have done pretty well with my kids. I'm more prosperous and stable now on my own than I ever was with a man by my side. Not that a man couldn't come in here and help out, but it just hasn't worked out that way. And I feel happy. I feel okay. It is other people's judgments and opinions that has made me question my own journey of like, well, obviously you didn't make good choices. Okay, well, and that's why I have to kind of toss it back to them of like, well, life happens.
But I am a child of divorced parents myself.
Yeah.
My parents divorced when I was 8. And I always said, but I knew even at that age that they weren't happy together. There was lots of arguing. There was, it wasn't working. And I'm an only child, so it was a lot for me to kind of deal with on my own. And I would argue, people go, oh, we stayed together for the sake of the children.
Yeah.
Like, the child doesn't know what's going on. The child may not know all the details of what's going on, but the child knows that the home life is not a happy life. And I would argue that it's better for the child to have 2 happier parents apart than 2 miserable ones together.
Yeah. And the thing about that too is like coming from some, where you had, your parents were divorced, but then your mom also met your lovely stepdad, who has turned into, you're basically your dad. so you kind of gotten to see like the best of both worlds there. Whereas my parents, I've had the same parents from start to finish. I met my stepdad when I was about around 3, and I can't remember anything before then anyways. So
Yeah.
he's like the first memory or notion of anything that I've had as a father. And they were together for what, 36, 37 years, something like that. So, but there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of turbulence. There was a lot of times where it was like, y'all probably shouldn't be together. You probably shouldn't, because you're toxic to each other and you're also toxic to the kids, you know?
Yeah.
I have a lot of issues that I'm working out from my childhood, from listening to constant arguing, hearing things that you really shouldn't hear as a child, because
Yeah.
I don't think that a lot of times my parents were very happy together. I think that they were that couple that stuck together for the kids, for to keep the foundation going. Obviously, there was love there. I do believe that there was love there. But I feel like love is not always enough.
No.
And there was a lot of codependency as well. And, you know, me and my mom, before she passed, we talked about a lot of this. So I'm not saying anything that I don't think is known anyways. But as a child growing up in that situation, I think there were times that I would have just rather them be apart. And then maybe my mom could have been happier. Maybe she could have,
Yeah.
you know, we could have heard less arguing. I could have seen my dad and my mom both in more positive lights, because, as you said, they would have been happier.
Yeah.
Instead, I saw my dad tired all the time and resentful because he had to keep a house going. I saw my mom tired and resentful because she felt like she was being misunderstood or forgotten or taken advantage of. It was just like a lot. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people go through, is like, well, I want to keep things together for the kids. And I'm going to stop in a second, give you a chance to talk. But it's like, when you're on the plane, what do they tell you when the plane's going down? They tell you to put the mask on yourself first. You are not good to anybody, not even your kids, if you are not happy. In fact, you're
100%.
damaging to your children if you're not happy.
100%. Happy mum is happy kids. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Which a lot of people don't, you know, there is still this very old fashioned notion of like, I will sacrifice, like some kind of martyr. And like, it doesn't matter if I'm miserable as long as my kids are happy. And it's bull crap. Your
Yeah.
kids are so aware. That's what I was saying before. They're so aware and they're so tuned in, and they're so, even if they don't know all of the details, they know the energy in the house. They are not stupid. They're not dumb. And so to have a happy mom, they feel safe.
Yeah.
They feel relaxed. They feel secure, which means that they can also then find their own happiness. It comes from it comes from the parents, and you know, and if you want to argue with me about that in the comments, absolutely fine. But it's just my experience, and I've seen that in my own life, but also like with family members and with friends. Happy mom is everything.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, the thing about it is like, you're absolutely right, because even though when there were times where I would hear my parents argue, I didn't know what they were arguing about. I was a child, so I didn't understand at that time the pressure of bills and life and things that I understand now, you know. But to hear the nastiness and the name calling and the just very nasty energy that I was, you know, subjected to, it's like I have core memories built in around things that are not great.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's kind of like, yeah, that's my own opinion. As the child growing up in the home with 2 unhappy parents, yes, I think that it would have been better if they would have been on their own. And as for people who want to come in the comments and argue with us, you cannot argue with somebody else's experience. We all have our own experiences, and therefore we develop our own perception through which we view our lives. So if you want to come in and voice your opinion, that is absolutely welcome. But arguing with us over our experience is going to get you nowhere, because your opinion is not going to change my experience.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely. I totally agree. And that's where, like, actually, the societal's view of single mothers, especially, is so unfair. Because, actually, in my opinion, single mothers are superheroes.
Yeah.
Again, all of them. I know there are some crappy single mothers out there, just like there's some crappy mothers in relationships out there. But when you're a single mom, you have to be everything. You're on call 24/7, and you have to be so many different things. You have to be mom, you have to be dad, you have to be the discipline, you have to be the fun parent, you have to be everything all the time. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of pressure. And and I think we do an amazing job. I really do.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, I know we're saying single moms because we are moms, but that's single dads too, because I have quite a few people
Yeah.
in my collective that are single dads that the mother is not in the picture. Single parents in general. But I was just about to say, this is not to say that being a single parent is all sunshine and roses either.
No.
Right? Because you're leaving a connection and you're like, okay, well, this isn't working for me and this is actually damaging to me and possibly my children. I need to step into protective mode and I need to do what's best for me and separate from this situation. You are opening up a whole new can of worms in your life.
Yeah.
Because as Katie, beautiful Katie, has just said, everything is on your shoulders. Everything.
Yeah.
Being a single parent is terrifying. I have absolutely no support, no help, nobody to fall back on. If I don't bring home the bacon and then cook it up and then clean up the dish and then do that, it's not going to be done. And it's a terrifying feeling. And I think it's terrifying in general for a parent, when you're worried about bills. I don't think but there's something that I will go on record as saying I do think it's a little bit scarier as a single parent.
100%. Yeah, because you are solely responsible for everything. If you're in a partnership, and I know, again, just to clarify, we know that not all partnerships are the same, and we know there are some really bad partnerships out there. We're generalizing, we're aware, but it's being in a partnership and having that shared responsibility is easier in a lot of ways than it is with the pressure of being on your own. And that goes to, and I need to say that one of the universal experiences in my, I believe, is mom guilt.
Yeah.
And I think as a single parent, it is the guilt of constantly feeling like everything you do is you question yourself, you're doubting yourself, you feel down no matter what if you freaking do. Because if you're working, then you're providing, but are you giving your children enough time? If you don't work as much and you're with your children and you're like fully present, then the money situation can be an issue. So it's like constantly like, oh, it's a lot.
Yeah. And the thing about it too is like the balance, the delicate balance. What time are we at, by the way?
It is. We've been on for an hour.
Okay. Um, I knew this episode might run a little bit longer just because of everything. So it's fine with me if it's fine with you. But the delicate balance that you have to have as a single parent too, because not only do you have to work, but you also have to make time for your kids. You have to play with them, because while one parent would traditionally be cooking, the other parent could be out there tossing the football in the yard with the kids, right? Or playing a board game or whatever. So you have to really have that delicate balance. Plus you have to have fine time for yourself. And when I have found that I have asked anybody who's not a single parent or is a little bit judgmental, the response I get is, well, you chose to be a single parent. Yeah, I did. You're right. And I'm not going to argue with that, because you're right. I did choose a single parent. I chose to be tired, and I chose to take care of my kids and put my kids' needs first over being around fighting, settling, alcoholism, being cheated on, toxic, damaging environments for my children. So yes, I did absolutely choose to be a single parent, but it's not like I walked away from heaven on earth either. No. It was one of those situations where I felt like I didn't really have a choice. So I don't like it when people throw that back. Well, you chose to be a single parent. No, this is the cards that I was dealt in life, and I'm playing my hand the best that I can.
Exactly. And basically that's all we are trying to do in our own different ways, Motherhood, I mean, it's one of the greatest life teachers. It's wonderfully, amazingly beautiful and funny at times. It is stressful and overwhelming and exhausting at times. There are times that you want to scream and jump out the window, and there's times that you're laughing so much your belly hurts. It's so many shades of light and darkness. And it teaches you so much about yourself because it has to. And the thing is, there is no, you can read all of the parenting books. You can listen to all of the parenting podcasts. Until you get into it and you're doing it, you are literally learning on the job. Your child and you are figuring this out every single day as you make it up as you go along.
Yeah. And I agree with that completely. And I think for every ounce that we've talked about the scary parts or the tiring parts of being a parent, there is so much light and laughter. Like, you know, Milo particularly is a very funny child. And he makes me laugh harder than I think most people in my life. Like, he is hilarious and so loving. And, you know, like I'll ask him, like, when he gets in the car, I'll be like, hey, is spaghetti okay for dinner? And he's like, of course. It's just, he's so cute. I just, you know what I mean? Like, and so I don't know. It's rewarding, but I feel like to round back and summarize and generalize, you need to think before you have a kid.
Yes, absolutely. Because it's also for life. You know, that the baby, the little, I've got a little baby, I've got a little baby. It's a baby in that voice. It's a baby for 5 minutes. And so my mom, I mean, I'm 43, God help me. And my mom still worries about me, supports me, you know, she's there for me. You don't stop being a parent. I mean, even when your child becomes 18 and is an adult, in inverted commas, just doesn't mean let you go, okay, I'm done now, bye, have a nice life. You are a parent for life. And it's a huge responsibility. And it is, can we just say, for the record, fucking expensive as well.
Yeah, so we didn't even touch base on that, how expensive it actually is to raise another human being. I mean, it's expensive to raise yourself.
100%. And that's the difference between the UK and the US. And I'm not saying the UK got it figured out because, good Lord, we haven't. But with the NHS, having a baby here, free. I mean, we pay for it in taxes when you get, well, obviously, coming out your wages. But at the point of entry, it's free. So having a child here, very different experience to having one in the States.
We do have Medicaid here, and so yes, you can have a free birth, and again, it's free in quotations because the taxpayers are paying for it. But if you don't qualify for Medicaid when you're doing well in this world, they punish you, and so you don't get a lot of help when you're doing well. And so, yeah, it can be difficult. I was going to say about the baby thing that you're talking about, because I don't know if anybody else here is old enough for this, but when you were in school, they would give you the flour baby. It was like a 5-pound sack of flour, and it would have like the nylons to make a head and all that. That is the bare, and if there's a bare minimum, it's below that of what actually having a baby is like. Yes, a hunk of junk on your shoulder, that's about it, like that, or on your hip, that's about all that is. You know, I feel like that's hilarious to try to teach you how it will be to have a child, a sack of flour. I remember I
never did that, but I watched it on like American movies and TV. We never actually got to do it, not in my school anyway. So yeah,
it was an experience. And let me tell you something. When I remember my sack of flour that I had. I was in love with that thing. Okay, and I had to go to my grandparents' house to go stay the weekend because we often did that. And so I hid my sack of flour because I knew my mom, being the baker, she was eyeballing that thing. And when I came back home, it was gone. She cut my flour baby open, Katie, and she baked a cake with it. I ate my baby. Okay, I ate my baby, and it was delicious. All right.
That sounds like it should be an episode on Jerry Springer's show. I ate my baby, and it was delicious.
That should be the title of this podcast. Motherhood. I ate my baby. It was, I don't know. Motherhood has been a trip. It has been one of the most rewarding things of my life too. Like, honestly, it's been rewarding. It's been tiring. It's been frustrating. It's been depressing. It's been all those things, you know?
Absolutely. And next month I have Gemini twins. Yes, the irony is not lost on me. And on the 15th of June, they're going to be 13. I'm going to have actual teenagers, twins in my house. And God help me and save me. Pray for me.
Well, I'll be there. You know?
I know, absolutely.
From a distance with love, I will be there. I mean, not up close or anything.
I know. But look, guys, honestly, we hope that you've at least had found this interesting. We appreciate that it was a lot at certain points, and we hope that you've had some laughs as well. And as ever, like I said at the start, if you want to share your thoughts or your own experiences, we love hearing them. So yeah, just thank you for watching this. Honestly, it's been a rise to say the very least.
Yeah, this episode was deep and just like, wow, very vulnerable, but that's okay. I don't think we have anything planned for the next episode.
Well, it's funny you said that because I've thought, and tell me what you think about this, and I'll put you on the spot, and I'm sorry, but women's health, because we have a lot of health experiences between us, and I think the way that, again, we're treated as women with our health issues, I think that's a very open subject, and we can probably dive into that next week if you want to.
I think that sounds interesting. You can't really put me on the spot with that kind of stuff because I'm down to talk about anything. That's the whole point of this podcast, is just talk about whatever we find interesting at the moment. And I think that will actually go into some of the current events, which is something I've been wanting to talk about. I've been wanting to dig into like current events, the way the world is going, what direction things are heading. So yeah.
Yeah, well, we won't go full, political conversation just yet, but I think diving into women's health, I think is a nice introductory thing into what's happening right now.
This is a vagina. No.
I'll come with diagrams next week, right?
If you have one of these, you don't matter. No, I'm just kidding, guys. Just kidding. Anyways.
And on that note, look, thank you so much for watching this, and let us know your thoughts, and thank you as ever. We really appreciate you guys. Truly, you guys are awesome, and we look forward to talking to you on the next one.
Yes. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.